It is a pleasure for me to be with you. I need to get to know you just a little bit. How many of you are exercise science majors? Raise your hand. Okay. Is there anyone that did not raise their hand? Would you raise your hand? Okay. So, all right. Gotcha. All right. How many of you are U.S. citizens? Okay. So that's the majority. How many from Hawaii? Okay. Good. How many are from the Pacific Islands? Okay. A few. How many from Asia? Okay. Wonderful. And how many from other parts of the world that I haven't asked for? Okay. Good. Mostly South America? Central America? Where are you from? Ecuador. Okay, wonderful. Okay, good. All right. I'm going to tell you right now, just so you can really kind of get used to this. This isn't about me lecturing to you today, so you need to be comfortable about the fact you're probably going to be up and moving, and you're going to have to participate and work together because I want you to remember a few things that I think will be very helpful for you in your future. But to start with, let's talk about some things. All right. Sister Davis asked me to talk about administration, about leadership, about issues that relate to that. How many of you know who Hugh Nibley is? Raise your hand. Okay, this dates you. You guys you're of an age where I wouldn't expect many of you to raise your hand. Hugh Nibley was a great scholar at BYU Provo. Very interesting man, a good thinker. He wrote an article a number of years ago, probably by now 20 years ago, and it was called, you might want to write this down, Management versus Leadership. Okay? Sister Davis, I'm going to let you write that on the board for me. Management versus leadership. Now, if we'd had time, I probably would have gotten that talk for you and let you read it. But just the title, Management versus Leadership, what might be a sense that you might have that Dr. Nibley suggested as he presented this article in this talk? Management versus leadership. Yes?
Good manager not necessarily is a good leader.
Okay, there's one point. You want to get that, Sister Davis? A good manager isn't necessarily a good leader. Great. What else? Yes?
I would say leadership is the ability to motivate people to get a job done, and management is the ability to organize people to get a job done.
Okay, excellent. So there's 2 points. Did you catch those?
No, I didn't.
Okay, say them again really loud.
So leadership is motivating, and management is organizing.
Okay, good. Another hand, yes?
I think management requires the presence of a manager a lot, and I think leadership doesn't require that all the time. Like Joseph Smith said, I teach him correct principles, let them govern themselves. So it doesn't require like this micromanaging, the constant presence of the manager.
Okay, wonderful. You've brought up a new term. We're going to throw this one up here, micromanaging. Okay? What does that mean? What does it mean to micromanage? Well, first of all, is micromanaging a good thing or a bad thing? How many think it's a bad thing? Raise your hand. How many think it's a good thing? A whole bunch of you guys are not committed today. So you've got to get with it here. All right, it's generally thought of as a bad thing. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you. Why do you think it would be a bad thing?
I think because it shows that you lack trust in the people that you're overseeing.
Okay.
Perhaps, but then it could be a good form of accountability, so it could work either way, I think.
Okay.
Good or bad.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right. Now, I'm going to tell you that in this article, like I said, very interesting article, Dr. Nibley goes through and explains the importance of leadership. This article is primarily about leadership. If you read the entire article, he does not make it leadership's important and management is not important. You know, see, some people would read that management versus leadership. You know, we want leaders, not managers. And the reason they would do that is because of this term micromanaging. Now, the issue, yes?
I have a question. What is micromanage?
Okay, micromanaging is when somebody does everything for you. A mother of a newborn baby would be micromanaging the environment of that newborn baby. The child does nothing, right? I mean, they can't do anything, so they micromanage it. when you get in elementary school, do you have some responsibilities as a child? Not very many, but a few, right? You might have to pick up your clothes, and you might have to make your bed. When you get in high school, do you have more responsibilities? Yes. When you get in college, you have more. When you become an adult, of which I assume the majority of you are now of age that you're an adult, and when you go into society, really you have some responsibility such that people should not manage you. They shouldn't micromanage you like your mother did when you were a little baby. Okay? So you're not a puppet on their string to do whatever they say. You should be able to act. Okay? Now, I didn't bring my scriptures. I should have, but there's some great scriptures. Elder Bednar is really big on teaching us out of the scriptures that we need to act. Okay? So managing is good, but it can be misused. And so micromanaging is when it's misused because someone, in fact, the term that we typically use in politics is that somebody would be a dictator. Okay? You all know that term? Anyone that's not familiar with that? If someone's a dictator, they're telling you everything you have to do. That's micromanaging. That's a form of micromanaging. I recently read an article that said if a leader fails to find a means to manage people, resources, their stewardship, very important word, stewardship. If they don't manage their stewardship, they don't find a means to do that, one of two forms develop, okay? One of two forms. All right? I've just told you what the one was. What was the one I just mentioned? A dictator. So the person takes most of the power and they then simply tell everybody what to do. Okay? What is the opposite form of leadership or politics from a dictatorship? Anyone know? What?
Democracy.
Okay, it's actually not democracy. Democracy is kind of in the middle. That's what we're trying to create in large part. It starts with an A. Anarchy. Okay, do you know what anarchy is, what it means?
No form of government.
So go ahead, whoever said that.
Form of government.
Yeah, really there's no form of control. It's in the Book of Mormon. When we read in the Book of Mormon and it says that the Lamanites and the Nephites, their system collapsed, what did they become? Do you remember? What did they organize themselves into? Tribes. Very good. Small tribes, okay? And whoever was the tribal chief, what do you think made them the leader of that little tribe? Have you ever thought about that? Okay, probably true. But my guess is that the way they made things happen is they were probably the toughest guy that was there. They could wield the sword the best. You know, they were maybe the biggest or strongest or whatever, okay? Well, the truth is that was a description of anarchy. All right? Now, you might say, oh, why is Brother Checkins talking about this stuff? I'm talking about this because you need to develop a way that you have a plan for managing and leading. And that's what we're going to talk about in our class period today. Okay? And there's some wonderful things out there now that are available to you that were not necessarily as available when I first started into my career. Now, I've had a wonderful career, but it's kind of a funny thing that I'm an animal scientist by training, and I'm a vice president of academics in Hawaii. Where's our animal science program in Hawaii? There isn't one, okay? Well, that's what life does to you sometimes in terms of roles and leadership. If I told you my history, you guys would just be, you'd probably be laughing at the weird turns that happened in my life that has brought me to this stage of my life. I'll just tell you just a couple of quick things. First of all, when I was in high school, I did not take trig. I didn't take physics. I didn't take chemistry 2. I didn't take calculus, all of which are seen as pre-college courses, right? How many of you took one of those courses in high school? Okay, a good number of you. Why didn't I take those? I grew up on a dairy farm. We milked 200 cows. At the time, that was a pretty good-sized dairy farm. I assumed I would go back and help my father manage this dairy farm, and eventually I'd inherit this farm, and that was going to be my life. And I was very prepared for that. I was number 10 in my class academically. Now don't get too impressed. There were only 67 in my graduating class, okay? But I was number 10. I was certified as a welder before I got out of high school. I could build almost anything out of wood. I could draft things. I had taught myself how to do certain things, all of which I'm glad I did. I still weld today. I have built 2 homes of my own. But the truth is when I was in high school, I did not prepare myself to go on to college. Why? I didn't have a vision of myself being in college. I didn't see my future that way. But what happened, and I was admitted to BYU Provo, and I went to BYU Provo before my mission, okay? Then I went on my mission, and I had a very different experience as a missionary. And it probably helped that in the meantime, my father actually went bankrupt and lost the dairy farm, okay? So I didn't have a chance to come back to the farm because he didn't have a farm to come back to. All right? So I don't know what your future will bring, but it will change you. When I came back, I decided I wanted to be a teacher. And so I started down that pathway. All right. I want you to take out a piece of paper, and I want you to write down the answer to 2 questions. The first question, I want you to write down one of, it doesn't have to be the, but one of the greatest challenges you think that the world faces today. So think of a problem that as a world we face today and write that down, just in a few words. I could give some examples, but then you'll just write my examples, and I want to know what your thoughts are. Okay? Second, I want you to write down one challenge that you currently face. And it doesn't have to be real significant, and you're not going to share this with anyone, but I need you to have these 2 things in your mind as we kind of start to proceed into some of these other issues. Okay? Everybody got that? All right. Let's hand that handout now, I think, if we could, Sister Davis. I'm going to give you a handout, and there's actually a number of concepts on this handout, so don't try to instantly link them, because you can't. They're just more triggers for you to be aware of than anything. But at the very top, when you get the handout, there are 2 words. And these 2 words talk about a form of leadership. And I want you to write on that piece of paper what you think might be the definition of those kind of leaderships. Look like we're, pass them up to the front as you fill in, if you would. Okay. Okay, these are 2 kinds of leaders. What does the word say? Someone volunteer over here that will read them out loud for me. Go ahead.
Transactional leader and transformational leader.
Okay, a transactional leader or a transformational leader. All right, those are the 2 kinds. Does everybody have a paper? All right, great. Right underneath it, write what you think the definition is. Now, I know you probably don't know. That's okay. Just think of the root word and write down a couple of words that you think it might define these kind of leaders. These 2 kinds, okay? Because we're going to talk about these for a few minutes. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. Just think of the root word. Transact, transform. Transact, transform. What does transact, where do you transact something? What would you, okay, great. That's what come to my mind too. What would you transform? You know, think of those 2 root words as you write a couple of things down here. Transact, transform. Okay? Now, somebody brave enough to share a word or 2 that they have that might define one or the other of these 2. Transactional and transformational. Yes?
I said transactional leader was one that processes, someone that just gets things done. And transformational is one that develops or molds a system or a person.
Okay, good, excellent. Yes?
Kind of along the same lines, one that's more focused on the end result rather than the road to.
Okay, good, very good. Anyone else? Yes?
Transactionalist, it makes things happen, you're familiar to the current state. Transformationalist, it things gotta change unfamiliar.
Okay, good, excellent. Now, I'm going to ask this question, and I'm going to tell you there's not a right answer, but do we only want one kind of these leaders, either a transactional or a transformational leader? Okay, now, the hint is our first statement up here. Do we only want management? No. Do we only want leadership? This is where people get tripped up sometimes. I've heard people say, I don't want anyone managing me. I just want a really good leader that I can follow. Who's your scriptural hero? Who do you hope in the next life to meet and shake their hand and say, I wanted to be just like you? You got someone in mind? Okay, I want you to have someone in mind. I'm going to tell you mine. Mine is Captain Moroni. Probably because Arnold Freeberg made him look so buff, okay? But dumb reason. But I really like Captain Moroni, okay? If you read in the book of Alma about Captain Moroni, was he only a leader or was he also a manager? Yeah, you have to think about this a little bit, but I can tell you, I can show you, if we had time, these principles in what Captain Moroni does along with these. It's very hard actually to just do these without having some impact from this, okay? Now, what did we say? What if you just do this, though, and you don't do this? Then you're micromanaging. That's what a micromanager is, okay? You're becoming a dictator, all right? We want to be, most people when they get in leadership, they want to be a transformational leader, okay? You all, I now dub you all transformational leaders, all of you, okay? By assignment, the fact you accepted admissions to BYU Hawaii, you're now a transformational leader. And the very first thing you have to do when you're a transformational leader is you have to have a vision. If you don't have a vision, you cannot lead. That's a pretty bold statement from Brother Checketts, but I believe it. You have to have a vision. Now, you have to have a vision about yourself and your role in your stewardship and your society and what you can do to help. And then you have to start to develop a vision for your family or your organization or your calling or whatever. But if you do not have a vision, you can't be a leader. Now, given that you're all university students, what might be one of the first things that you should have some vision about? A job. Why?
Because we need to have jobs after we graduate to take care of our families.
Okay, good. Yeah, do you know that one of the big concerns in the church is there are places in the world where wonderful return missionaries return home, and because they cannot get a job that they can have enough income, they choose not to get married because they can't support a wife and children. If we think of our eternal progression, are they progressing? No, but literally economics is holding them back. Okay? It's a great concern. It's something, believe me, the brethren talk to me about every chance they get and say, Brother Checketts, what are you doing about this issue? So, all right? You have to have a vision about your job. Okay, now when you have a vision about your job, what do you do? Do you imagine being the president or a vice president? Is that where you start your vision for your job coming out of a university? Okay, what might be your vision for a job coming out of school? Internship. Okay, maybe starting with an internship. Wonderful. What else? You're all exercise science, right? Give me an example of what you're imagining. What is in your mind that you want to be when you're finished with this program?
Coaching.
Coaching, wonderful. Now, are you going to be coaching in the NBA or something? That's probably not your sport, but whatever. No, you're not going to start there, are you? Okay. Now, one of the other things you need to understand about life is there are man-made and there are, sorry, I'm using my statistical stuff here now. There are man-made and there are natural cycles that occur. Okay? Most people think in terms of man-made. Does anyone know what we call a line that's like that? It's not a very good line, but what would we call that in an algebraic thing? What? Bad? It's a linear line, right? It's right? It's a linear. All right. What do we call that kind of a line? Okay, this is the natural line, or what I call the natural line. Do you realize that in terms of your career, the likelihood of your monitoring your progress is much more inclined to be this one than it will be to be this one? So you graduate from college right here. You get your first job right there. What can you kind of expect for about the first 10 years? Nothing big. Should you get discouraged? No. Should you develop patience? Absolutely. But some things will happen across here that you will only know about when you get over here, but all kinds of things are going to happen over in this period of your life that are going to prepare you for this phase of your life. And here's the reason why that happens. When you get in this phase of your life, you are so consumed sometimes with your leadership and other things. Do you have time to develop the things that you needed to develop here? You don't, okay? For 10 years, I was a faculty member. I wasn't a department chair. I served on 2 committees. And I thought, well, I'm happy, but I could do more if they wanted me to do more. And then I finished my doctorate. That really made a difference. All of a sudden, I made the equivalent of a college dean, and then 2 years later, I'm an assistant acting vice president. And I was actually working on some things. I was trying to become an appraiser for large farms and so forth. I had to give that completely up because once I hit this phase of my career, I didn't have time to do some of the development in those areas. So don't be impatient with yourself. Just have a vision about this part primarily, and the Lord will help take you through the rest of this, okay? All right, what's the second thing you should have a vision about? Besides your job, what do you think else? Yes?
The people you lead.
Okay, the people you lead, good. I'm going to come back to that one, but I'm thinking about kind of who you are. Who are you right now? Yes?
Well, one thing that sticks to me is my dad told me what he liked my mom was that she always had the internal perspective.
Okay.
So internal vision.
Wonderful. And one of the best ways to get kind of an eternal perspective or vision is to do what? I apologize. I know I'm asking you to get in my head. That's really a bad teaching technique, but I've got to make this point. How, in the eternal plan of things, what's kind of expected of you either while you're in college or shortly after you're out of college? All right, I mean, I don't like to say it because I'm not trying to put pressure on any of you. But the truth is, this is the truth, brothers and sisters. I have learned more. I have learned more about leadership being a father than I have in all the books I've read, all the people I've led, all the general authorities I've listened to. And if you talk to the brethren, they'll tell you the same thing, and the sisters. So if you want leadership training, you can try to do it on your own. You can try. But the truth is, here's part of what Heavenly Father knows about us that we don't know about ourselves. Some of you know this, some of you don't yet, but I'll just tell you because you need to know it. Women are really weird, and men are weirder. But by them getting together, they help each other to develop some attributes and traits that both of us need in order to progress. And the hardest challenges you'll face, probably in leadership, will not be in managing a very complex university. It will be probably in managing your home and your family. So that's why I asked you to see what the second question was. You see, these principles are principles that you need to practice because it's going to make you who you are not only in this life, but in the life to come. Now again, we don't have time, but I'm just going to reflect to this, and then you can kind of keep your ear open for this if you're in your religion class. Any of you in Doctrine and Covenants class? Second half? Okay. Second half of the Doctrine and Covenants is absolutely full of admonitions from the Savior that we need to educate ourselves. It's just, I could start, it starts actually in the 20 sections, but by the time you get into the 80 sections, it's just almost, you know, every third or fourth section there's something about educating ourselves. All right? And it's not because the Lord wanted a whole bunch of college professors out there. It's because it's how we progress as we prepare for eternity. All right. I think I've made that point. To be a leader, you have to have what?
Vision.
A vision. Okay, do not forget that. All right. Let's talk just a little bit about management. And let's talk about what it takes in terms of management to be a transformational leader. Okay? Now, I've told you have to have a vision. I wrote some things up here on the board, so let's just look at this list here. Okay, we start with this word up here, H-E-A-D, stands for head, right? Down here is tail. It's the opposite of head, right? What if you're assigned as the leader of the, did it backwards, sorry, the tail organization, and your board of directors tell you we want to be the head organization. Okay? If you are given that challenge, this then becomes what that we just talked about? This is the vision. You have to be able to see it. And if you don't understand it, when someone gives you a vision, you see, President Willwright, myself, we don't make up the vision we have here. Who gives us the vision? The Board of Education, which is made up of the first presidency, 2 apostles, young women's president, young Relief Society general president, so forth. But we better understand their vision. Now, I can tell you, I've worked with the brethren and sisters a long, long time. They can give this vision quite well. They do not know, at least they never tell us, they do not know how to get from here to here. Okay, if the rules of getting from here to here is you can reorder the letters, but you can only change one letter, do you think most people, I've put this all up here just to save time, but do you think most people would say, oh yeah, I can get from there to there in terms of changing tail to head with those instructions? Most people lack the vision or the creative energy or whatever it is to get from there to there. To get from here to here, you have to have both management and leadership. Now, let's just go through this one. All right? What did we change going to the next word? Just change this I to an L, right? What about the next one? E. Okay, what did we do the next one? A from the L, right? The next one? H. Okay. The next one we changed the L to a D, and there we are. Pretty simple when you actually see the patterns, right? Now, I have a reward, little contest here, never hurt anybody. Here's the reward, Snickers bar. Okay? See who can get from iron to lead. We're going to do it the other way. Iron to lead, 6 steps. You can use 6 words between it. You can only change one letter. You can reorder the letters. I don't care. They don't have to be in the same order. This is actually simpler than the one I've given you here. But see if you can do that with 6 words between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to give you about 3-4 minutes. Sister Davis does not want you to succeed because if you don't, then she gets the candy bar. And these have to be meaningful words. They can't be nonsensical words, okay? I can tell some of you have given up. But some of you haven't, so I'm going to give you a little more time. You have it? Okay, you want to come up and write it here for us?
I think it's right.
By the way, I don't know that there's just one way to do it, so as long as you follow the rules, it'll be right.
I went, like, is that okay to do that? Because I have the ORN.
And you just changed the and. Okay, gotcha. You guys test and make sure he follows the rules here.
Word, so I just switched the N and the D.
Okay.
And then went to war. Like,
Okay, gotcha.
and then went hard.
Okay.
And then harp. Then changed that to an E and did heap. And then
Wonderful.
changed the P to a D.
Okay.
Oh.
Only one problem.
Ah,
Excellent effort, though. Good. Thank you. You don't get the candy bar, but you were close. Yes. Can you do it? Okay. We'll try here, and then you're next. Okay. One more. We're going to do 2 more tries. Him and then him. You know, this is interesting because the girls. We know the girls are smarter. It's just that the guys are hungrier, right? That's what motivates them. Just do it beside here. Wow, that's impressive. It's even less than, that's only in 5. I think that's right. Okay, we only changed, let's see, we got to think there. You changed 2 letters here, didn't you? Oh, no. Well, but the W too, so the W and an A. Oh, I'm sorry, God, remember what I'm saying. I think you got her. Anyone want to contest that he got it? You want to try it again? Okay, here. Don't eat this in class.
Oh, I have one.
Go ahead. This is a good little family home evening activity for you. You can show your brilliance with all your family. That one, see if that one works better. Okay, you're really close. Let's see. I think this one here might have 2.
Which one have 2?
Actually, it's a different way, so it might be okay.
no, she just said,
Good. Thank you. Did you think you had it too?
I
Yeah.
just read it from your paper.
Ah! Yeah, mine's different. Mine goes from iron to icon to coin, corn, cord, lord, load, and lead. Okay? So there are many ways to do it. Now, here's my point. And I'm going to use an example that is right. You're experiencing it. You're the product of part of this. When President Bednar, former president of mine, when President Wheelwright first came here, the Board of Education had some concerns about the expense. Education is a fairly expensive proposition. It costs about 50% more to educate you here for the church than it does in Provo. Okay? And at Idaho, it costs them half as much as it does in Provo. That's in terms of the church's investment. Okay? So when the president came here, one of the things that the brethren asked him to do, they actually asked him to do 3 things. To reduce the overall cost to both the church and to the student, the relative cost, I should say, okay, to serve more students and to improve the overall quality of the experience. Not just in the classroom, but the whole experience. Okay, those were his 3 challenges. Now, I'll show you another management principle that you can be aware of. If you have 3 principles, it forms a nice little triangle, right? So we're going to improve quality. We're going to improve the, I'll do it this way, but write it out, the quantity of students, okay? And what was the other thing? Reduce the cost, okay? Usually, in most of the problems you'll face, this isn't quite that way. This would be like time. It's usually time, quality, and money. Those are the 3 variables you have to kind of juggle. And generally speaking, people that will teach you all these principles will tell you, you can control 2, you can't control all 3, and so you have to pick which 2 you control. So, if you're building a house, and you want it to be an inexpensive house, you're going to control this one, okay? But you want it to be a good house, you're going to control this one. So what's going to happen with this one? Are you going to do it fast? No, it's probably going to take longer. All right? If you want a fast house and you want a quality house, what do? You call in those TV guys that come in and build it in a week, right? What, Home Improvement, what is it called? Yeah, that's the group. I don't watch them anymore. So, all right. The truth is, the Board of Education asked President Wheelwright to work on all 3 at the same time. They weren't very kind to us. Well, one of the things we knew is that to reduce the cost, the best way is to increase the quantity of students that we serve. That's the fastest way. Why would that be? The university has fixed costs, okay, right? I mean, whether we had 100 students here or we have 2,652, which is how many we have this fall, there are a lot of costs that are fixed, right? If you take the fixed costs and you divide it by more students, what happens to the individual cost per student? It goes down. So we knew, sorry, quantity, get the right one. We knew that had to happen, okay? Then we had to look and see where the resources were. Where were the resources to increase? What's the limiting factor in this community? Housing. You guys are smart because, I mean, it doesn't take you very long to figure out. I actually could take about an extra 50 to 100 students in terms of faculty resources and all the stuff I manage, but there's not sufficient housing. I mean, the truth is we're already concerned about some of the places that you guys have to stay in. Housing is the limiting factor. But what's the situation for housing in the summer? It's much better, okay? So we had to look at where the limiting factor was, and so we said, well, the best thing for us to do is to figure out how to use all 3 of the periods we have. So, how many of you have been here for at least 3 years? Okay, what was the first calendar? What did it look like, the first calendar about 3 years ago that they changed? Do you remember? It really was the one that was even last year. What did last year's calendar look like? It had 3 terms, right? All right? And before that, they actually had 2 terms, but you only came to 1 and so forth. What I'm basically trying to show you is this pattern. We had a pretty good sense of what had to happen up here, but we couldn't get from here to there without taking some steps. The truth is, I'll tell you what the vision of this is. 3 equal, wonderful semesters. That's what we're looking for. When you get ready to register right now for summer, do you have the same course selections you have when you register for winter or fall? No. Well, that's what this vision is. And I'm working dang hard to try to get there. I'm not there, but we're making progress. And so we have to take some steps between here, okay? Of leadership and management, which one of those is this? If you have a vision, which one of those is vision? Leadership. What are these? Management. If you want to be successful, you have to figure out how to manage things, because once you have the vision, you have to be able to move from where you're at to where your vision is to go. And there is not an easy path to get there. Why do I know there's not an easy path to get there? What? Okay, could be more than one. What else? President Maxwell had a great saying on this. He said, this is an exciting time in the church. All the easy things have already been done. What does that imply?
Everything else is hard.
Yeah, we get left with all the hard things. Okay? Does that discourage you, or does that excite you? Can you tell what it does to me? Yeah, I get excited. People give me a good enough challenge, I get excited about it. Okay? These are not easy things to get to. Okay? Let me give you the newest thing that we're now wrestling with. President and I will probably go to a summit in January where the other academic vice presidents and presidents from the other universities will all come together. We have tens of thousands of young people just like yourselves, in your home countries in many cases, other than the U.S. probably, and Canada and maybe some of Europe, but certainly in South and Central America, much of the Pacific and Asia, there are tens of thousands of students that would like to have some kind of an education that is somewhat like you're experiencing here. The education budget for the church now is second only to one other category. There's only one category that takes more money out of the church tithes and offerings than education. Anyone want to guess what that is? No, it's building. Missionaries right behind education. Building is the only thing that takes more money out than education. The church cannot spend more money on education. They've hit the threshold. And yet, have they met the demand? No. I mean, there's just tens of thousands out there that have a need. So we're having a summit in January to talk about how we use online education to reach starting hundreds and then hopefully thousands more. Okay? Is that a challenge? Yeah, it's a huge challenge. I hope we're up to it. It'll take us a while, but we're committed. We're going to do it. All right? Do you understand what I'm trying to teach here? You understand vision, you understand leadership, you understand management? Okay? All right. On your paper, let's go to the next thing. Sister Davis, I'm going to ask you to help me again if I can. And if you can erase this, and then I want you to draw that little matrix for me there. Okay, right beneath those two words, I drew a little box, okay? And I put four kind of concepts in it. This is what I kind of call the management box, all right? You can see that in quadrant 1, you have urgent and important. What does urgent mean? Yeah, for some reason, there's a time constraint. It needs to happen right now. Give me an example of something that's urgent. What's that? Yeah, some medical emergency. Paying rent on time. Could be, but you might have more control if you thought about it and could earlier. So, okay, good one. All right, having a baby. Is that urgent? Yeah, that's kind of urgent. Okay. All right, the next box, quadrant 2, is not urgent but important. Not urgent but important. So, what's the time constraint? Yeah, there's not somebody holding a gun to your head saying you've got to get this done, but is it important? Okay, it's important. All right. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important. Does anyone want to give me an example of something that might be urgent but not important? This one's always a little scary, but let's see what we can come up with. Because I'll say some things that will offend some of you. But when the big waves are up on the North Shore, they only come a few times, right? So is that urgent? It's restrained by time. Are they important? Some in here might say, absolutely, they're essential. That's why I'm in Hawaii, okay? But in the eternal scheme of things, they might not be as important, okay? Let's keep thinking about that. Does anyone have a favorite TV show that they're addicted to and they just have to watch it? What quadrant is their favorite TV show in? Quadrant Yeah, probably actually in 4, okay? Because it's, why is it not urgent? Let's talk about why would a TV show not be urgent?
You can watch it online.
Yeah, you can watch it online, good. And on Hulu, you can DVR it, record it, okay? If you didn't have those things, though, it'd have been quadrant 3, right? Because you have to schedule time to be there. Back when Sister Davis and I were watching TV, if you wanted to watch TV, you had to be there when the TV show came on. You couldn't record it, okay? So quadrant 3 was full of those kind of things. Are there other things like that in students' lives that are a student might think is urgent but wouldn't necessarily be important? Let's come up with a few more.
Shopping sale.
Shopping sale, good. Black Friday, yeah, gotcha. Yes?
Homework.
Homework, oh, homework, ooh.
There's a lot of busy work.
Okay, all right, let's define homework. If it's busy work, then probably that's very true, okay?
Practice.
What?
Practice.
Practice? Oh, boy, I'm not telling your coach you just did that. Okay? Social life, okay? Now, is all social life down in this area? Not all, but certainly some is, okay? Because you have to make some judgments with your time, don't you? Because this is your time. You only have so many hours in a week, okay? Now, here's the challenge, because I'm not going to spend a lot more time on this. I think you get the point. Which quadrant will make you a leader?
First one.
Actually, no. All of them together won't. What?
First one.
Nope. Quadrant 2. And this is why. Quadrant 1 you will do because the pressure that's on you, it will happen. Usually somebody else is involved in that pressure. You know, if my wife's ready to have a baby, I can't say, hold off, dear. You know, I've got something important going here. I mean, you know, or if the bishop calls, the bishop sent the executive secretary and called and told me I have to speak something in church, okay? Quadrant 1 stuff, you can have some influence on it, but generally speaking, you know, you don't have a whole lot of influence. Typically, those things will happen. And you have plenty of time to do quadrant 1 stuff. I'm just going to tell you. But what happens is we tend to get bogged down in quadrant 3 and 4, and we don't do 2. As a university student, what are some things that you think you might need to do that are not urgent but are important?
Marriage.
Okay, marriage could be one.
Go to the temple.
Go to the temple, wonderful. Yes, back here.
Research papers due at the end of the semester.
Excellent. Yeah, get a head start on that research paper so it can be a little stronger by the time you turn it in. Good. What else? Think as you go through your experience and you're just about to end. What else might you want to do that's important?
Take an internship.
Okay, help set up an internship. And why would that be important? Yeah.
It sets you up for your career.
Yeah. I mean, that might be the long-term interview for your first job, is that internship. What else? What else? You need to make sure you have a vision. Flip over to the back side of this sheet. Every one of you should write up, we're about out of time, aren't we? Every one of you should write up your own creed. Now, this is called my creed. It's actually not mine. Mine's quite a bit longer than this, and it's very much more specific. I didn't want to bore you with my creed. But I wrote a creed when I was in my 20s, and my creed directed me a lot. This is similar to my creed. In fact, I've taken some things down here. It says, promise yourself to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and expect only the best. To talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person you meet. To be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. To look at the sunny side of everything and make your optimism come true. To wear a cheerful countenance at all times and give every living creature you meet a smile. To give so much time to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others. If you can do that creed, if you just embrace that creed, you will be a leader. And the reason why is because people will see you doing these things and they'll say, I need them to help me with this. And at first it's going to look like an insignificant project. But when you're successful with something that's not as important, then you will be drafted in to do other things that are more important. All right, last principle, and then I'll turn you loose. At the bottom here, I talk about the governmental style of the church. It's called counseling in councils. There's a wonderful book Elder Ballard wrote. I encourage all of you to read it. I don't know if it's one of the texts for your classes, but you ought to at least get some readings out of it. That's a challenge for Sister Davis to consider. The truth is even in business or government, counseling in councils is a very powerful technique that should be used by all of us. It helps to refine vision. It helps to set purpose and direction. It helps in communications, and it helps in terms of the planning that's involved. Let me tell you the key and the basic structure of counseling and councils. I'll use a church setting. A counseling and a council setting at the stake level is there has to be a presiding officer. Who's the presiding officer in the stake? Stake president. And then the presiding officer has other people that are there. He has 2 counselors. He has a high council. He has the general relief society presidency, the young women's primary presidency, and other stake officers. That whole group creates a council. As they go through this process, does that stake president say, I'm the stake president, I have the keys, which he does, wonderful blessing we have stake presidents have keys, therefore we'll do it this way. What's that called? We talked about earlier? Dictatorship. There are stake presidents that administer that way. It's unfortunate. They're probably okay, but they're not really effective because, remember what I told about men and women, for example? They're weird, yeah. They're both weird. Do you think that when the stake president says, here's the problem we face, and the high counselor that's over it says, well, this is what I think we should do you think that when the stake relief society president says, that's a good solution, but have you considered this? Do you think you will come to a better solution?
Yeah.
What do you think happens? I work with a lot of stake presidents. What do you think happens when the stake president asks the elders quorum president and the high priest group leader how the families are doing in their stake? What do they tell them? They're all wonderful. They're doing great. Yeah, no problems, Bishop. We're all doing good. What do you think happens when the bishop goes and talks to the Relief Society president? Absolutely. She'll say, you know, the Smiths are out of work. And the Ulavas has a job, but he's not making the bills pay. And this couple's separated, and that's the difference between counseling and councils and being a dictator or allowing anarchy to reign. You need other people. To be a leader, you have to have some followers. But if you see yourself as a dictator, you will be far less effective than if you can get the other people along with you. Counseling and councils is a great technique. Thank you for your attention. Good luck in being leaders. I wish you the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give him a hand.